I've made the mistake before of saying goodbye, and then the phone rings a year later. So I'm keeping an open heart and an open mind.
So I want to start with this. Years ago in the Avengers, Tony Stark told Loki,
"There's no throne. There is no version of this where you come out on top."
Well, he has a throne now, but in your mind, is he on top?
Erik, can I just say no one else has mentioned that or pulled that quote. That's a deep cut. And I just need to pay you my respects out aloud. Wow. Yes, he does say that. And it's really going back to something that he learns across both seasons of this series, which is he's always defined himself by that iconic line, "I am Loki of Asgard and I am burdened with glorious purpose." And the lesson, this variant, the guy who picked up the Tesseract in Avengers Endgame because Hulk took the stairs or Tony had a cardiac arrest, is ripped out of time and reality and processed by the TVA. And through his experiences with Mobius and with Sylvie and his relationships with them, and he's given a second chance because he's shown that his idea of a glorious purpose is fraudulent and meaningless, that he was destined to lose, so to make others look good. There was no glory in it, ever. And the whole of these 12 episodes are actually about rethinking and redefining that sense of purpose.
Most purpose is more burden than glory.
And I haven't said this yet, but you just really made me think of it. We talked a lot about this absolutely great poem or a series of poems by T.S. Eliot called The Four Quartets. An absolutely extraordinary piece of writing. And the poem is about time and grief and the past and making peace with the past so you can move forward through the present and into the future. And there's a line in it which actually goes like this: "And what you thought you came for is only a shell, a husk of meaning, from which the purpose breaks only when it is fulfilled, if at all. Either you had no purpose, or the purpose is beyond the end you figured and is altered in fulfillment." And your point is like, is it the throne he always wanted, and is he on top? I think it's that he didn't realize, he would never have known that the purpose he thought he had was going to come in a different shape at a different time and from a different lens. And so I think it's a kind of surprise to him that is where he's supposed to be. So that's a long answer, but it's a really good question.
Thank you. And I love that answer. Thank you so much. And I want to ask this as well. I mean, obviously, Loki was surrounded by a great group of characters in this show, and they were with him up until the end. But given that his story began in earnest in Asgard, how did it feel for you personally to be ending, this journey of his without your good buddy Chris Hemsworth alongside you as Thor?
I assure you, brother, the sun will shine on us again.
It's really interesting because I think Thor is still very much alive in Loki's mind. I think part of what's interesting about the series is that we discover more about Mobius and Sylvie and B-15, Obi, Casey, all these other characters, that they were kidnapped from real lives on the timeline. And there's a debate about free will and predetermination. And if you had the choice, what life would you choose? And Loki knows that his life on the timeline is one where he loses his family. Ultimately, he sacrifices himself for his brother. So in trying to find a new meaning, I think part of the drive in his search is that he keeps his family very alive in his mind. I think at the end, he's thinking of them all. They're close to his heart, and he's listening and he's watching. He knows they're in his heart.
Do you think he can communicate through throughout the sacred, timeline tree? And if he could, what would he say to Thor and even Odin and Frigga?
I wonder. I think the burden is that maybe he's up there without witness. He's like Atlas holding up the world. It's almost true divinity in the sense that he's undertaken an enormous responsibility, but nobody knows that he has.
I know what kind of God I need to be for all of us.
I have to ask you, I mean, you said I don't want to keep harping on this being the end of your journey as Loki, but you said recently that you do view this as a conclusion to, a 14-year period in your life. Now, with that in mind, if the opportunity were to arise for you to reprise Loki or a variant of him in a movie like, Avengers: The Kang Dynasty or Avengers: Secret Wars, how open would you be to that? Like, would you?
Well, yes, I suppose that what I should clarify is that I feel very satisfied with the finale of season 2, because it seems to contain echoes and resonances of the entire journey. It's almost like a piece of music where in that last episode, you hear strains of, whether it's in lines of dialogue, we are circling the same themes that I've always circled with Loki, that he's a character who's engaged with ideas of belonging, ideas of identity, ideas of purpose. That's who he was at the beginning in the first Thor film, wondering where he belonged, which family he belonged to, wondering what his role was in all of this. Thor was destined to be king of Asgard. Who am I? Who is Loki? And I've been asking that question the whole way, like, who does Loki think he is? Who does he think he is, and who is he really? And then through the series in season 1 and season 2, I think the confrontation with Mobius and the mirror of Sylvie is another excavation. We go deeper into those ideas. So the end of this was it felt like a poetic redemption, like the end of a piece of music. But I don't know if it's, I mean, I've made the mistake before of saying goodbye, and saying goodbye to this, this great team at Marvel, and it's been emotional, and we've swapped notes and saying, look, we'll love you, we're always part of the family, come see us anytime. And then the phone rings a year later. So I'm keeping an open heart and an open mind. I
mean, you've also already found a new family of sorts with Mike Flanagan, and I'm curious, what has your experience been like on the life of Chuck, and what does the work of Stephen King mean to you?
Do you know, you're the first person to ask me about that. I had the most wonderful experience working with Mike Flanagan and with the company of performers that he assembled. I find a very moving and beautiful story. You've reminded me of something, actually. I remember seeing The Shawshank Redemption when I was about 12 or 13 years old. And I think it's still probably one of my top 5 favorite films of all time, because there is a warmth and a strength of spirit and a kind of overarching philosophy that is resolutely on the side of life and love that's at the center of that story. And I think it's that Stephen King that is that's behind The Life of Chuck. It's the same warmth, the same spirit.
Tom, I just want to thank you again for your time and for speaking with me. Like I said, I've just been such a big fan over this journey, and just to talk to you now at this point, it's just nothing short of spectacular. So thank you for your great work, not just in Marvel, but just in general. And I can tell you, honestly, it's going to be enjoyed for years to come. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Very, very kind of you. Thanks.